There comes a time in every young man's life when they're faced with a decision. If you were stranded on a desert island, would you rather be stuck with Ginger or Marianne? I can say this without any hesitation. My answer, and the only right answer, has always been Marianne. Dawn Wells joins us today on the show. How are you?
I'm just wonderful. It's a good thing it's not Ginger sitting here. Then what would you do?
Yeah, I'd be in real trouble.
Yes, you would.
Well, who wants high maintenance when you're stranded on a desert island? You know.
Well, that's it. And if you're a young man looking at it, Marianne would have been your best friend or gone to the prom or played catch with you or something. You'd have to kind of entertain Ginger right there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to keep her in diamonds when I got real problems to deal with.
That's right.
Now, you've written a book. It's just come out, and it's a combination, memoir, inspirational tome. It's a lot of things all in one. How did this whole project come about?
Well, I didn't want to write an autobiography and, tell everybody every little thing that happened in my life. And because Gilligan's Island has gone on so long, it's our 50th year. Since it's gone on so long, it's 3 generations I've raised, really. Mm-hmm. And the influence that the character Marianne has had. I mean, she was sort of, I call her the moral compass, really, of the show. And I think today, fathers in their 40s bring their kids. And I raised the fathers in their 40s. So it's passing on that Marianne's values to this next generation. What would Marianne do? When we were stranded on Gilligan's Island that first year, birth control hadn't even been invented. So, I mean, look how far we've come or gone or whatever you want to say. So it's kind of a nice way of saying, how do we live today? How do we get through today? It's 7 misfits trying to get along. We've got 130 countries trying to get along. So how do we do it? There's certain things you can't say don't drink. Now, what are the rules if you're going to drink? Because kids are going to drink anyway. So what do you do? I say to some of the parents, you have the right to go through their drawers. They're living with you. Yeah. They shouldn't be hiding anything in the drawers that they can't talk to you about. Maybe you shouldn't be doing it, but you should be talking about it with your kids. So it's not a goody two-shoes book. You could pick up any chapter, about what kind of a work ethic do you have? Do you finish the job you start? Do you show up on time? What do you do when there's a lady that's, 70 years old trying to get through a door? Are you polite enough to open it for her? I mean, it's just basic rules of getting along, and it's harder today. And it's a delightful book. I'm very, very proud of it. It's my voice. It's like I'm talking to you. I went through 4 co-authors trying to find I said, you don't have my voice. I don't type. So I'm not going to sit down there and type every word. I want to talk to you and you type it. But I want to talk to you. And everybody, everybody says, well, why do we love Marianne? It isn't a question of, well, I'm going to tell you why we love Marianne. Let's talk to her. What would Marianne be saying to you today? And I really think, because I created that character, there was no format, that I know how she would react. So Steve and I really clicked, and I think that's a real important thing. It's my voice, no question. And the illustrations in front are wonderful. And they're done by an illustrator that's done the Rat Pack and all that sort of stuff. And when I first opened the book, I thought, I don't know if I really like those pictures. And I went, wait a minute, those are the expressions I use in all those episodes. He watched me and put that frown on my face, Right. Yeah, I'm very pleased with it. And you can pick it up and read any chapter, thumb through and read chapter 12. It isn't something you have to follow from A to Z. And I do talk about why I am the way I am. I was raised in Marianne in Reno, Nevada with gambling, prostitution, and divorce. I mean, you'd say, wait a minute, how did you grow up? There was respect in my household. My parents were divorced. Why didn't I sneak out and get drunk with my girlfriends in high school? Because I respected my mother, and how can you get respect unless there's kind of rules of the household, and rules sound so strict. But, I mean, there's certain things that you grow up with that you take for granted. Put your napkin on your lap. Once you start that as a kid, you always want to use your napkin. So it's kind of that, the moral compass of today. How do we function today? It's different, but you don't put your nude pictures on your iPhone, or everybody in the world's going to see it.
When I see those stories, I think, how stupid do you have to be?
Exactly. And there's bullying today, because you can say something about somebody and it goes viral, or whatever you want to call it. If you used to whisper to your girlfriend, gosh, Patsy's hair looks just terrible today. But if you say that on the Internet or wherever it is, 1,000 people read that. So there's a little different rules in today's society, but it doesn't mean that we still can't be, I don't want to say good girls, because I'm not talking goody two-shoes.
Well, I certainly hope some young people read it, because what often happens is that one starts to realize the value in the lessons you're talking about here when they're older.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now, how important is that $500 purse? How important is the Kardashian? What are they doing tomorrow? And I sort of see it as a mother giving it to her daughter at Christmas, let's say, and reading it together, or a father with a daughter and reading it together. And there's a lot you can laugh at. I use examples of the people in the show, sort of. But it isn't a preachy kind of thing. I think perhaps it's not for a 9-year-old that doesn't know the show. But Marianne, you liked her. She didn't lecture you. She coerced you into helping pick the pineapples. I think it's just a way of getting along in today's world, I think.
Well, I have a feeling that there probably are some 9-year-olds out there who are aware of the show. And, this all happened really, it began in the 70s with the breakdown of the American family. You had kids coming home from school, and their television basically raised them. As you referred to earlier, television was the babysitter.
Well, and it's brothers and sisters coming home from school together. And, one of the things that really got me as I was writing the book, the people that say I was abused, or I was the wallflower, or I didn't have any family, how much this show meant, how much you learned from these 7 misfits trying to get along. And now what do they look at when they're babysitting? I don't know. You're looking at Miley Cyrus on a piano top. I don't know.
Yeah. Can I ask you briefly about some of your fellow cast members? You address them in the book as well. Recently we lost Russell Johnson. Can you just speak for a moment about him and his contribution?
Well, I adored him, and Russell and I were the rest, the first year. He was very bright. He was very gentle. He was very, very smart. He had the best sense of humor. You would think Jim Backus might have had, but Russell had that wonderful little dry wit. And I can remember when we were first starting, he had a son that was a genius. He was teaching himself Russian at age 9. And Russell lost his son to AIDS when AIDS first came out. And I remember how brave he was to get up and talk about it, and speak about loving his son and all of that, and accepting it. He was a wonderful man. We were all pretty much our characters. I think that goes in the casting. You know, I really do. Mrs. Howell was very much a Mrs. Howell. Alan Hale was this wonderful jovial skipper. He never barked at Gilligan and ruled him, because he could certainly have outweighed him. And Marianne was sort of, she cooked, she cleaned, she wanted Mr. Howell to be nice to Mrs. Howell some. We were all, the casting was wonderful, and I think that's chemistry, and that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
It might be a good actor, and then you get there and somebody's a stick in the mud and doesn't join in, and we all did. We all were really happy to be there.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but for fans of the show, they've often wished that eventually the professor and Marianne would get together. Are you aware of this phenomenon?
Well, I sort of like that idea myself. I think if we each hadn't been married, I used to laugh and say we'd go off to our own little island. Because we were thrown together as the rest, we were very close friends.
Right. People forget, that Russell Johnson appeared in so many movies prior to the show and after.
And he had a series called Black Saddle, I think, where he played a bad guy.
Yeah.
A real bad guy. A heavy. And he was so handsome and gentle, you would never have known he would have been the mean one.
Do you have any memorabilia or costumes from the show or anything like that?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. This weekend coming up, I'm auctioning my shorts. Profiles in History is going to an open auction. There's a catalog on the web. But it was the first shorts ever on television. And I helped design them because you had to cover my navel. And Ginger had to cover her cleavage. And I was short with Ginger with her legs that went as high as my shoulders. And I thought, how am I going to look not short and dumpy in those short shorts? So I designed the legs coming up a little higher and the waistband going a little lower. But we had to have a little rise that came to cover my navel. So they're going on auction. I thought, I don't have kids. Who am I going to leave this stuff to? So somebody's going to open my trunk when I'm gone and say, what's this pair of old stuff, and throw it away. So I thought it might be a good time, since it's the 50th anniversary, to auction them off.
Wow. Well, I'd almost like to see it eventually wind up in the Smithsonian. It's...
Well, I've talked to the Smithsonian about it, and they keep things in drawers. Maybe they'll do a costume collection for 3 weeks in November. I'm making that up. But it isn't like it's there that you can walk through and see. So I thought some fan that was really a fan from another country, or, as somebody that would say this would be a nice little treasure.
When people want to get the book, obviously they can go to bookstores, they can go to Amazon.com. Do you have a website or some place where people can get it directly from you?
DawnWells.com, and you can order it directly from me. Go on the website, and I will personalize it. If you say, make it out to Susie, I will do that. Your local bookstore you can support. I mean, I think reading material gets harder every year because we have so much visual.
That's true.
But this is something you could pick up and read with your kids, or a couple of girlfriends can read it, or it's a great little Christmas gift. I'm very, very proud of it, and I was a little intimidated to write a book. Everybody's doing it,
Yeah.
But it's fun, and it's an easy read.
And it's exactly the kind of book that one would imagine Marianne would write.
It is, and she wasn't just a little silly farm girl.
Yeah.
Marianne had some logic. She was fair. She was kind of a leader. She was a worker. She helped. She pitched in. She had manners. I mean, I think she's kind of a good role model today.
Absolutely. Well, it has been such a joy to speak with you. I want to thank you so much for not only writing the book, but for agreeing to come on and talk about it. And I want to urge all of our listeners to go over to DawnWells.com to get the latest information and, of course, to pick up the book. You were adorable then. You are adorable now. I've seen recent photos of you, and you pop up on television here and there, and I'm swooning as I'm speaking to you.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that. As you get older, it gets harder every day. Every woman out there knows what I'm talking about.
Well, thank you so much, and you have a great rest of your day.
And you have a great rest of your life. Thanks for calling.